Morning Year 3, this is your Tuesday English lesson. Check you've got your sharp pencil, your English book, your ruler and a worksheet if you were able to print it out at home. Your worksheet should look a bit like this. If you weren't able to print it out, that's fine, you can just jot some notes in your book. You'll just need to write the heading in the margin. So pause the video, just check you've got those things. Okay, so today's Tuesday, we're going to jot down the date in our note. Normally we do that in our English book, but if you're working off your sheet, it might be worth jotting that onto your sheet. Pause the video and do that now. So today we're going to be researching about how the Romans lived. We're going to be starting our research today and we're going to be continuing this activity tomorrow. So this is going to be over 2 days. As we just said, we're going to find out about the Roman way of life and all this information that we're collecting today in our notes is going to help us with our poster next week. So it's really important that we fill out as many notes as we can into these boxes and then that will help us and we won't feel stuck when we're writing slightly longer paragraphs. So with our notes today, you might want to make your notes in bullet points. And remember, notes aren't really long sentences. They might be just a little phrase, they might be some key words, they might be short sentences, but we're not looking at really long sentences. We need to just pop in as many little notes as we can, as many facts we're looking at today as possible in each of the boxes. So as we can see by the ticks, we are going to be looking at Roman homes today and looking at education as well. So those are the 2 things we're doing today. The other 3 boxes we will do tomorrow. There might be something you can already jot that you know about Roman homes in that box. You could do that now if you knew something already. And we're going to be looking at Roman homes a little bit more closely in our geography next week. So if you're feeling like your box has got a little bit of space in it, there might be another opportunity to jot some more things in that box in our next geography lesson, but I'll leave that up to you to do. So let's do the first one together. So on this particular one with the homes, I have found 2 pictures that we're going to have a look at. The first picture is zooming in really on this home. This home is not a home in the city. It might be in a small town, or it might even be more on its own actually. We know that most Romans live in towns and cities, but there were some that lived in other parts as well. We can just get a bit more of a closer look really at what the house really looked like. As you can see, we're doing some inferring here, they're quite large. That's a really big property, isn't it, for whoever's living here? Let's think about the materials that it's made of. We know that the Celts had round houses that were made of materials that maybe weren't long lasting. They broke apart quite easily. Whereas if we have a look at the materials used in this picture, there might be something you can already infer about it. Well, I mean, I'm certainly thinking about how it looks like it's made of stone, and even our houses now are made largely of stone. So it's going to be very long lasting. They're going to be very sturdy. I'd feel very safe if I was living in one of these houses. Against all weather, your house is going to be sturdy and stand, and I'm not going to be worried about anything falling apart. They were probably quite warm. If they had these fires going in there, I would imagine they're quite warm. And they've even got windows if you look carefully. Can you see the windows there? And we know that the Celts' round houses didn't have such thing as windows. They needed no windows to keep the warmth in, didn't they? So that's telling us that these Roman homes were probably quite warm. And actually, if these were in Rome, Italy is quite a warm country anyway, certainly in some parts of the year. So quite different to the Celts. It might be worth pausing the video and just jotting something down that we've talked about, or something else that you've inferred about the first picture. Something else that I've just spotted as well, looking at this picture, is all the part of land which is inside this home. Almost looks like a massive garden, doesn't it? Imagine living in a home like that with a massive garden. You might be lucky enough to do that now, but in those days, not everybody had big gardens. Looks like there's statues in this garden. Maybe a little, I don't know, little road that runs through it. Quite decorative. And if we have a look at this other picture together, this picture is more zoomed out. So we're looking at a Roman town or city this time. Again, we're going to look at this a lot more actually in our geography lesson next week, but you can see there are lots of buildings together. They're living in more of a community, aren't they? And already you might make assumptions about that in itself. Living in a community brings lots of positivity, doesn't it? So there would be homes together more in this settlement. And have you noticed something special going all the way around the outside of this city or town? What do you think that is? Well, it's a wall. If you were living in a community that had a really strong, sturdy wall around the outside, how would that make you feel in your home? If you've got an idea, jot that down in your note box now. It would certainly make me feel very safe and protected, knowing that there was a big wall. No one, you've got to imagine yourself back in those days, no one was going to come and, invade easily anyway into your home. So you might have noticed as well down here, I've just popped a little box there. It's a word bank, really. It's words I think would be really good to include in this box. Perhaps more in a little sentence rather than just on their own. And they're also there to help with your spelling as well. So some really key words there which are going to be helpful. So you might want to just cast your eye over those and that will give you a bit of a hand. Let's watch a video together. This is going to be our last source today that we're going to have a look at to help us with our notes around homes. So you'll need to bear with me a moment while I set that up. Okay, here we go. So get ready with your pencil because there will be some more information here. It talks a little bit about food actually as well. You might want to just jot something in the food and drink box if you hear of anything that would be useful. But let's have a watch.
Here we are. This is my villa. Oh, it's truly wonderful. I think everyone should live in luxury like this, don't you?
Oh, yes. Sure they'd like to.
Oh, isn't this courtyard splendid and so fashionable, just like they have in Rome? Come on, I can't wait to show you my frescoes. This is my favourite room. It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yes. I like the paintings on the wall.
Oh, they're not just paintings, Rom. They're frescoes, the latest thing. The paint is made from plants, natural stones, and animal dyes, which are mixed together with egg whites to thicken them.
Sounds delicious.
You have to paint them carefully onto wet plaster so that they last longer. This is the life, isn't it? I love relaxing in this dining room, thinking about all the banquets we've held here. My husband loves entertaining, you know. We have guests most nights of the week, and the food we serve comes straight from the farm. I'm famous for my dinner parties. Perhaps you've heard of them?
Oh, yes. I heard about Senator Sickius spending all night in the vomitarium.
That wasn't at one of my dinner parties. My guests would, never overdo it.
They do drink a lot of wine, though. I mean, I know, because I supply it. It comes from all parts of the Roman Empire for you.
Yes, well, we have to buy some things, like wine, olive oil, fish sauce. But most of the food my slaves prepare and serve is really very fresh indeed. Tonight, we're having my favorite. Dormice, cooked in honey, served with poppy seeds.
Oh, lovely.
So you might want to pause your video again and just jot down any of the notes that you heard. Certainly a couple of things that would be in my box there would be the fact that they had Roman villas. And these villas were very luxury. They even had lots of rooms in them. They even had a dining room, which is what the lady was talking about on the video. So, I mean, she also talked about the fact they had lots of artwork on the inside of the walls, didn't she? Frescoes is what she was talking about. So they were pretty fancy. They were pretty luxury. Not every Roman lived in these villas, but it was certainly they're certainly well known for their villas and the fact they used to live in these you know, large properties and have banquets and guests around. So there we go. I'm going to move on now to education. So if you still need to pop some notes into that box, please do that now. Remember, we want as many facts in this box as we can think of in there. So let's look at education. I'm going to leave you to write more of your own facts on this one. I haven't got a word bank on this occasion because our source that we've got today, the evidence, I should call it, is already written. So we can see the spellings, can't we, which will help us anyway. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. So listen to my reading, see if you can follow it with your eyes, and then you'll have an opportunity to pause it in a moment. Here we go. Most children did not go to school. Schools were not free in Roman times. Parents had to pay for their children to have a tutor or a teacher. The poor Romans couldn't afford to educate their children, so the boys learned a trade from their fathers, and the girls learned household skills such as sewing and cooking from their mothers. When it says about a trade, that means like a physical skill normally. So it might have been, you know, making shoes, or it might have been building walls, building things. So yeah, that's what a trade is. Schools were built in towns, and there were not many of them. So many wealthy parents employed a slave who was well educated to teach their sons. The slave was called a pedagogue. Pedagogue? I think that's right. If children went to school, they started from the ages 6 to 12. So normally in our country now, we would start school at the age of 4, wouldn't we? But in Roman times, they actually started somewhere between 6 and 12. It's a little bit later. Lessons began at dawn and were finished by early afternoon. They learnt to read and write in Latin. That's a different sort of language. Okay, pause the video and jot down any little notes that you thought were really interesting. And now we are going to have another little video that's going to give us some more information for that box. Here we go, listen carefully and get your pencil ready.
Well, if you were lucky enough to be born into a wealthy family in Rome or at the heart of the empire, life could be pretty sweet. A beautiful house, servants to wait on you hand and foot, and your own personal tutor or pedagogue to teach you about the finer things in life. Those parents who could afford it would send their children to school, but even then, it was only the boys, because the girls were expected to work or help their parents in the home. But if you weren't one of the rich kids, it was a different matter altogether. Most poor children had no education whatsoever and were expected to work for a living. And even they were luckier than some children. Some newborn babies were sold as slaves if their parents were desperate for money. Come in. You're late. I hope you've got a note. That is not a note. That is a wax tablet. Go and stand at the back of the room.
Okay, let's go back to where we were. You might want to pause the video again now to write down any extra notes that you will be useful for that box. Okay, well done for today, everyone. We're going to pause there. We're going to fill out those other boxes tomorrow. So I will see you then. Bye.